Welcome back to our ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. Today, we will dive deep into the explosive developments unfolding on Thursday, December 4th, as Port Charles faces a cascade of shocking revelations, emotional confrontations, and dangerous secrets threatening to unravel the lives of several key characters. Buckle up, because this episode promises to deliver the kind of dramatic fireworks that keep devoted fans glued to their screens, with multiple intersecting storylines that will leave viewers questioning everything they thought they knew about who they can trust in this increasingly complicated town. The Drew Cain Confession. Curtis Ashford's dangerous secret. Curtis Ashford finds himself backed into an increasingly precarious corner as he prepares to make what could be a life-altering confession regarding the Drew Cain shooting, having already been forced to tell lies to the police during their investigation into this highly publicized crime. Curtis now faces the daunting reality that his deceptions are beginning to crumble around him. The weight of knowing what truly transpired behind closed doors has become an unbearable burden, one that threatens to expose his involvement in a criminal conspiracy that extends far beyond simple obstruction of justice. When Curtis finally retreats to a private moment with Jordan Ashford, the tension between them will be palpable as he struggles with the impossible decision of whether to finally come clean about his role in ordering a hit on Drew. The revelation that Curtis offered Selena Wu an astonishing sum of $1 million in exchange for carrying out this deadly deed represents a shocking turning point in his character arc, suggesting that desperation and fear have driven him to contemplate actions he never imagined himself capable of committing. As Jordan listens to her husband's confession, she will be forced to grapple with the complicated emotions of learning that the man she loves may have orchestrated an attempted murder, all while trying to understand his motivations and the desperate circumstances that led him down this dark path. Nina Reeves faces a devastating day at Brown Dog Bar. Nina Reeves arrives at the upscale Brown Dog Bar hoping for a moment of respite from the mounting pressures and complications that have begun to dominate her personal life in recent weeks. Upon encountering Ava Jerome, who is herself dealing with her own tangled web of secrets and lies, Nina immediately laments that her day has reached an all-time low, expressing her frustration with the seemingly endless parade of disappointments and betrayals she continues to experience. Ava, ever the pragmatist with her own cynical worldview shaped by years of surviving in Port Charles' dangerous landscape, responds with a cryptic warning that Nina should not be so confident in her assessment of just how terrible things can become. The tension between the two women escalates dramatically when Ava reveals her shocking betrayal. She has recently informed Portia Robinson about Nina's relentless efforts to implicate her as a potential suspect in the Drew Cain shooting investigation. According to Ava's explanation, her decision to betray Nina's confidence stemmed from a genuine concern that Nina was deliberately stirring up trouble for Portia and potentially putting her at risk through malicious rumors and unsubstantiated accusations. This revelation acts as a catalyst, sparking an intense emotional reaction from Nina, who feels blindsided by what she perceives as a violation of their fragile friendship and an act of deliberate sabotage during an already difficult period in her life. Portia Robinson's confrontation and accusatory questions, adding another layer of complexity to Nina's already nightmarish day. Portia Robinson makes a dramatic entrance at Brown Dog Bar, clearly intent on confronting Nina about the unfounded accusations and suspicions that have been circulating throughout Port Charles. The confrontation that ensues is tense and emotionally charged, with Portia demanding to know whether Nina genuinely believes she is responsible for shooting Drew Cain, an accusation that strikes at the very heart of Portia's reputation and character. Portia's approach is confrontational and unapologetic, making it clear that regardless of how Nina responds to her question, she has already decided to express her anger and frustration at being dragged into this dangerous situation by association. The public nature of this confrontation at a popular watering hole like Brown Dog Bar means that multiple witnesses will observe this dramatic exchange, ensuring that word of their heated argument spreads throughout the community and likely adds fuel to the ongoing speculation and gossip surrounding the Drew Cain case. For Nina, this represents a humiliating reversal of her efforts to deflect suspicion away from herself by pointing fingers at others, as she finds herself on the receiving end of exactly the kind of aggressive questioning and accusatory behavior she has been attempting to inflict on Portia. The encounter serves as a stark reminder that in a town like Port Charles, actions have consequences, and attempting to manipulate investigations through false accusations ultimately creates more problems than it solves. The dangerous lab break-in plot and youth gone wrong. Meanwhile, away from the adult drama consuming the attention of Port Charles' older residents, a potentially dangerous subplot is developing involving the younger generation, particularly Joe and Emma Scorpio Drake, who have become increasingly emboldened in their plans to break into a scientific laboratory. Emma has recently made a significant discovery regarding the location of a second laboratory facility, a finding that has reinvigorated their determination to move forward with their ill-advised scheme to infiltrate the premises. The motivations behind this break-in remain somewhat shrouded in mystery, though it appears the two young people believe they have legitimate reasons for their actions, whether related to gathering evidence, retrieving something they believe belongs to them, or conducting unauthorized research. Their youthful confidence in their ability to pull off this crime without consequences represents the kind of dangerous naivete that often leads young people into serious legal and personal trouble. The fact that Dante Falconeri has apparently decided to intervene by forbidding his son Rocco from continuing his association with Joe suggests that the adults in town are beginning to recognize the severity and legitimacy of these concerns about the young man's troublemaking activities, Dante's protective intervention, and family concerns. Dante Falconeri's decision to ban his son Rocco from spending time with Joe Palmieri stems from a genuine concern about the negative influences and dangerous situations into which this friendship appears to be leading. Dante, drawing on his experience as both a police officer and a devoted father, recognizes the pattern of behavior that typically precedes serious criminal charges and legal consequences for young people who become involved in break-ins and other felonious activities. His protective stance finds strong support from Lulu Spencer, who shares his concerns that Rocco cannot afford to become entangled in additional legal troubles or scandals that might further complicate his already complicated life. The weight of Dante's parental authority is being exercised not out of arbitrary restriction, but rather out of genuine love and a desire to protect his son from potentially life-altering consequences. This intervention represents the kind of difficult parenting decision that pits short-term conflict and teenage rebellion against long-term safety and security, with Dante clearly believing that the temporary anger and resentment Rocco may feel toward him is a small price to pay for keeping his son out of serious legal jeopardy. Sonny and Rick's fragile peace and tentative brotherhood. Over at Sonny Corinthos' residence, an interesting and somewhat unexpected development is unfolding as Rick Lansing and Sonny find themselves in a surprisingly civil and even cooperative frame of mind toward one another. The shared legal challenges they are facing have apparently created a circumstance wherein Rick's professional expertise and legal acumen have become valuable to Sonny, leading to a temporary détente in their historically contentious relationship. Rick's toast to Sonny, expressed with the wry humor and cautious optimism that characterizes his personality, acknowledges the fragile nature of this newly formed peace. "Here's to that lasting more than one day," he says while raising his glass. This comment, simultaneously hopeful and skeptical, reveals Rick's awareness that such moments of brotherhood between rivals rarely survive long in the high-stakes world of Port Charles, where alliances are formed out of necessity rather than genuine affection. The fact that they are working together on matters of legal significance suggests that Sonny is facing serious challenges that require Rick's specialized knowledge and connections within the legal system. For the moment, Both men appear willing to set aside their personal animosities and historical grievances in order to address whatever pressing issues are currently threatening Sonny's freedom, reputation, or business interests. Kevin and Laura's shocking revelations about deception. As the episode progresses, Kevin Collins becomes increasingly distressed as Laura Collins reveals troubling new information about Professor Henry Hank Dalton and the extent of the deception that has been orchestrated. Kevin's perspective shifts dramatically when he comes to understand that this situation involved far more than simply setting Laura up for a fall. It represented a calculated message being sent to her and potentially to others in Port Charles. This revelation adds a sinister dimension to the unfolding mystery, suggesting that Hank Dalton's actions were part of a larger, more coordinated conspiracy with multiple layers and participants. Laura's confession that she ultimately turned to Sonny Corinthos for assistance after discovering something truly horrific in the trunk of a vehicle raises numerous questions about the nature of what she found and why she felt compelled to seek out Sonny's particular form of help and protection. This decision to involve Sonny, a man with deep connections to the criminal underworld and resources that operate outside the bounds of legal authority, suggests that Laura believed the situation had escalated beyond what law enforcement could appropriately handle. The gravity of whatever Laura discovered and her willingness to place herself under obligation to a powerful mob figure in order to address it indicates that the Hank Dalton situation may be far more serious and dangerous than initially understood. Next, we will explore one of the most compelling mysteries unfolding in Port Charles, the enigmatic story of Nathan West and the pivotal role that federal agent Jack Brennan is playing in uncovering the truth. As the fall season settles over the coastal town, viewers are witnessing the emergence of a complex web of secrets, deception, and potentially life-altering revelations that could reshape the entire dynamic of the show's narrative landscape. The central mystery, Nathan West's disappearance and return. The burning question that has captivated General Hospital fans for weeks centers on the profound mystery surrounding Nathan West's inexplicable 7-year absence. How did he manage to vanish without a trace? What forces were responsible for his supposed death? And more importantly, what circumstances allowed him to miraculously return to Port Charles alive? These questions form the foundation of a storyline that promises to be far more intricate and multifaceted than fans initially anticipated. The writers have carefully constructed a narrative that suggests Nathan's return is not simply a matter of a man escaping captivity or surviving against impossible odds. Rather, it appears that Nathan's reappearance may be intertwined with criminal organizations, covert operations, and potentially someone's deliberate machinations to restore him to society. Each revelation peels back another layer of this elaborate mystery, revealing darker truths beneath the surface. Jack Brennan's strategic investigation begins. Federal agent Jack Brennan has emerged as the principal investigator tasked with unraveling this intricate puzzle, and his methodical approach to questioning Nathan reveals a man who is deeply skeptical of surface-level explanations. Brennan, armed with years of investigative experience and a keen eye for detecting inconsistencies in witness testimony, has developed a working theory that the young man sitting across from him is concealing something of monumental significance. During their tense confrontations, Brennan has methodically laid out the potential charges that Nathan could face, painting a stark picture of legal jeopardy that includes conspiracy, attempted murder, and treason charges that could result in decades of incarceration. The agent's demeanor throughout these interrogations suggests someone who is not interested in partial truths or convenient explanations. Brennan appears determined to excavate the complete historical record of Nathan's disappearance and to identify every individual and organization that may have been involved in whatever transpired during those 7 missing years. The brewing conflict, rival perspectives on truth and deception. As October draws to a close, the General Hospital writing team is deliberately constructing a narrative arc that emphasizes the escalating rivalry between Nathan and Brennan. These two men represent fundamentally opposing worldviews. Nathan, who maintains his claim of complete amnesia regarding his missing years, and Brennan, who operates from a framework of institutional skepticism and demand for verifiable evidence. Brennan has strategically offered Nathan a potential lifeline, the promise of immunity from federal prosecution in exchange for comprehensive testimony regarding Cesar Fazen's criminal enterprise. This offer represents both a carrot and a stick. It presents Nathan with an opportunity to reduce his legal exposure while simultaneously demonstrating to Nathan that Brennan possesses significant leverage and determination. The agent's body language and tone during these interactions make abundantly clear that refusing this offer would carry severe consequences that extend far beyond simple legal troubles. Nathan, displaying a resolve that could indicate either genuine innocence or calculated deception, has consistently rejected Brennan's assertions and has staunchly refused to acknowledge any meaningful connection between himself and Fazen beyond their biological relationship. When confronted with suggestions that Fazen might serve as a father figure or mentor, Nathan has vehemently denied such implications, insisting that his personal feelings toward Fazen are complicated by trauma and resentment rather than loyalty. In a moment of theatrical defiance, Nathan dramatically exited Brennan's office, leaving the investigator to contemplate whether he had pushed the young man too far or whether Nathan's emotional display was itself a calculated performance designed to deflect further questioning. Scrutinizing Nathan's claims of amnesia, despite Nathan's theatrical rejection of Brennan's interrogation methods, the federal agent's analytical intuition may actually be pointing him toward uncomfortable truths that Nathan prefers to keep buried. There exists a compelling possibility that Nathan is deliberately fabricating his memory loss narrative, constructing an elaborate fiction designed to provide plausible deniability for any activities he engaged in during his 7-year disappearance. This hypothesis gains additional credibility when one considers Nathan's seemingly authentic interactions with his romantic partner, Britt Westburn, where he demonstrates surprisingly comprehensive knowledge about contemporary events and social dynamics that someone with genuine amnesia might struggle to articulate. Alternatively, and perhaps more disturbingly, Nathan may be genuinely experiencing legitimate memory loss, but simultaneously possessing undeniable knowledge about his involuntary participation in whatever criminal initiative Cesar Fazen was orchestrating during those missing years. In this scenario, Nathan's amnesia might represent a psychological defense mechanism, his mind's desperate attempt to compartmentalize or suppress traumatic experiences that were too psychologically damaging to integrate into his conscious memory. Regardless of which explanation proves to be accurate, the evidence overwhelmingly suggests that Nathan maintains some form of connection to Fazen's criminal infrastructure. Brennan's investigative instincts, honed through years of federal service, appear to be correctly identifying inconsistencies in Nathan's narrative that the casual observer might easily overlook. The agent's refusal to accept simplistic explanations and his persistence in pursuing seemingly minor details suggest that Brennan represents a formidable investigative force, one that Nathan clearly underestimated when he believed a dramatic exit from Brennan's office would conclude their adversarial relationship. The phone call, a critical clue in the narrative, a particularly significant evidentiary element that has captured Brennan's attention, involves security footage documenting Nathan engaged in a phone conversation immediately prior to the accident that precipitated his mysterious disappearance. This footage suggests that Nathan was communicating with someone whose identity remains unknown and whose relationship to Nathan's subsequent vanishing may be anything but coincidental. Brennan has approached this discovery with the enthusiasm of an investigator who recognizes a genuine breakthrough in an otherwise opaque case. The agent has become increasingly optimistic about his capacity to identify the individual on the receiving end of that call, understanding that doing so could potentially unlock the entire mystery surrounding Nathan's 7-year absence. The identity of this mysterious caller could prove to be the linchpin that transforms isolated fragments of circumstantial evidence into a comprehensive, coherent narrative that explains exactly what happened to Nathan and why he has returned to Port Charles at this particular moment in time. Brennan's determination to trace this call and identify the caller demonstrates his conviction that meaningful answers exist and that persistence combined with proper investigative technique will ultimately reveal those answers. Nathan's perception management strategy. From the perspective of many Port Charles residents, Nathan has managed to present himself as essentially the same fundamentally decent human being they remember from before his disappearance. His reintegration into society has been remarkably smooth, and most observers appear inclined to accept his amnesia explanation and to welcome him back into the community with minimal reservation. Brennan's outsider status, his unfamiliarity with the old Nathan, and his institutional skepticism about convenient explanations positions him uniquely to perceive inconsistencies and suspicious elements that longtime Port Charles residents might unconsciously overlook due to emotional attachment or nostalgic memory. Brennan lacks the psychological investment in believing Nathan's story, which arguably makes him the ideal candidate to investigate whether Nathan is accurately representing his past or whether he is engaging in a sophisticated exercise in deception. As Brennan continues his investigation and moves progressively closer to uncovering whatever truth exists beneath the surface of Nathan's carefully constructed narrative, the agent may inadvertently be positioning himself in an increasingly precarious and potentially dangerous situation. Emerging dangers and hidden adversaries. The escalating tension between Nathan and Brennan does not exist in isolation. Rather, it operates within a broader context of threat and danger that encompasses additional actors whose motivations and allegiances remain partially obscure. Specifically, the figure of Jen Sidwell introduces a substantial complicating factor to this narrative equation. Sidwell, whose criminal background and current activities suggest someone operating at significant levels of organizational sophistication, may be directly connected to Nathan's disappearance and to whatever criminal infrastructure Faison was developing. Should Brennan continue his investigation and actually succeed in uncovering the complete truth, including details about Nathan's complicity in Faison's criminal operations or evidence of coordination between Nathan and Sidwell, the federal agent could rapidly transform from investigator to target. The possibility that Nathan may actually be serving as Sidwell's concealed accomplice or subordinate operative adds an additional layer of menace to this unfolding situation. If such a connection exists, Brennan's continued investigation would represent a direct threat to a criminal enterprise that is demonstrably willing to employ violence to protect its interests. Viewers of General Hospital should remain vigilant for indicators suggesting that Brennan is being monitored or that his personal safety is becoming increasingly compromised as a consequence of his investigative activities.